setting forth a moral standard that nature is to be worshipped and therefore biology is to be worshipped, which is about as dangerous a message as you could promulgate. The truth is that biology is certainly not something to worship. Biology is in many cases something that you need to control. Western civilization is premised on the basic foundation that nature is present, nature is sometimes good, but this idea that you should do what you want just because you want it has now taken over Western civilization, and it's destroying it from the inside. So when you see naked bicyclists riding around in Fremont, yeah, it's funny and it's ridiculous, but the truth is it's a symptom of a diseased culture, a culture that says that it's okay to treat your body with no respect, that it's okay to assault other people's senses, and that it's okay to act like an animal. Because that's, of course, animals don't wear clothes. Getting rid of your clothes in public is really just animalism. And maybe I'm taking all this too seriously. It's possible I'm taking all of this too seriously. But I do wonder why it is that as a culture, we have become so okay with the overthrow of traditional mores and values in favor of what looks like pure hedonism. All of these solstice events were not just about soaking up the sun and enjoying yourself. You can do that with your family. You can do that without taking off your clothes. You can certainly do it without taking drugs. And God knows you can do it without riding around on a bicycle naked. First of all, super uncomfortable for the dudes. I would imagine it's not very comfortable for the ladies either. But why, if you're going to do anything naked, would you really want a bicycle? Is that really your idea of a good time? Over in Fremont, however, it is. And so they were bicycling around on Saturday. And I'll bet you that the people who are doing it feel a certain sense of superiority to those benighted religious folks. Because recognize something. Yes, there are religious people who feel that their way of life is morally superior, but so do pagans. So do atheists. So do agnostics. They feel that their way of life, their moral system is actually morally superior. There's something morally superior about riding around naked and transgressive, because you're saying to the social standards that they're not worthwhile. Only you are worthwhile. It's why so many of these folks are interested in self-discovery as opposed to bettering the world. I'm not sure how riding around naked on a bicycle makes the world a better place. They feel it does, because if you discover yourself, then you discover the universe. And if you discover the universe, then you've discovered others. Well, I'm over here. It's not that hard to discover me. I'm the guy raising his hand and saying, please, for the love of Pete, would you put on some clothes? Larry in Seattle, Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770, KTTH. Go for it, Larry.
Well, hey, I enjoyed your discussion here. Sounds good. I got not much to add. I just can't believe I got in the car. I heard this on the radio. I can't believe that we don't have public indecency laws, and they aren't arrested for walking. I think I would get, or riding, I would get arrested if I walked down the street naked, I would think.
Yeah. Larry, great point. That's a great point. I mean, that's exactly right. Of course you would be. It's public exposure. It's indecent exposure. You'd be arrested. But if you slap some body paint on yourself and you call it a tribute to the sun, then in Seattle, I guess that makes you worthy of front page coverage over at the Seattle PI. Well, and I thought California was bad. As we continue here on the Ben Shapiro Show, the situation on the border gets ever more disturbing. We'll bring you the latest. Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770, KTTH, KTTH.com.
You're listening to The Ben Shapiro Show on AM 770 KTTH.
This is The Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770 KTTH. Ton to get to this hour, including immigration. We'll also be getting to an accused cop killer who's now being, we're literally going to shell out like $60,000 for this guy. I'll tell you why. And I got to tell you about this event on Thursday night. Thursday night, big event over at Seattle U. We are going to be doing an event about religious freedom and whether it is being quashed. It's me, it's Michael Medved, it's David Bose moderating, it's Rainier Beach Methodist United pastor Reverend Monica Corsero, who is the woman who basically set up the gay Boy Scout leader to take over the Boy Scout troop. They were ousted, became national news. She will be there. So will a columnist from the Huffington Post, as well as a professor from UW. We'll all be there to talk about whether religious freedom in America is being quashed. That is Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. over at Seattle U. If you want tickets, KTTH.com is the place to get them. $15, $10 if you are a student. Now, one of the one of the controversy that is currently embroiling the Obama administration, and should be, because it's probably the biggest story that we've had in America in at least the last 5 years. That is this tremendous rush, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants pouring across our border, expecting that amnesty will come anytime. And President Obama, of course, pretending that he is attempting to stop all of that, but in essence doing nothing. A new report from Kristen Tate over at Breitbart.com suggests that thousands of illegal immigrants are now flooding the border and are actually jumping aboard freight trains to do so. It's a shocking story. Very disturbing. I want to have Kristen on to kind of describe the situation at the border. Kristen, thanks so much for joining the Ben Shapiro Show.
Thanks for having me on, Ben. How are you?
Doing well. So, Kristen, why don't you give me the background on this? How many people are crossing the border? And you write about what people are calling the El Tren de la Muerta, or the death train. What exactly does that mean?
Right. Well, right now they're apprehending over 1,400 illegal immigrants every day here in Texas. And at just one sector, actually, at the Rio Grande Valley sector. And a large number of these migrants are coming to the checkpoint via the death train. The death train is basically a phenomenon that includes a system of freight trains that travel the length of Mexico. It's about a 1,500-mile journey. And these migrants, most of them are children, are jumping on the train at the southern part of Mexico, and they're riding them up all the way to the northern part. And it's a really, really dangerous journey. There have been reports of children falling off, losing limbs, and just having life-threatening injuries from this. So it's really, really a dangerous trek north, whether you choose to travel via the death train or with a smuggler.
Now, Kristen, how are these folks getting into Mexico in the first place? Because we in the United States who are in the conservative movement have heard about Mexico's pretty strict restrictions on crossing their southern border. How is it that so many folks are crossing that southern border to come all the way up north?
It's the work of smugglers. So how it works is parents in Central America hear that if they bring their kids or have their kids sent to America, the child will receive amnesty. So they'll pay a smuggler a certain fee. Now, the smuggler will either bring the child to Mexico where they'll hop on these death trains, or the alternative way is the smuggler will bring them right through Mexico and bring them via on foot or vehicle up to the U.S. border. So getting them through that southern Mexican border is all up to the smuggler, and it's unclear how many don't get through. I'm sure we're seeing the ones that do get through, but I'm sure there's a high portion of them that never even make it through that part of the trip.
And Kristen, what exactly is Border Patrol doing about all of this? Because you mentioned that they're arresting 1,400 people a day in the Rio Grande Valley. That's actually one of the least policed areas of the border. I mean, down in Tucson, they actually have Border Patrol. And in San Diego, they have Border Patrol. But the Rio Grande Valley, it doesn't have nearly as much Border Patrol as other areas of the border. How are they arresting all these folks? And how many, if they're capturing 1,400 a day, how many folks are getting through without being arrested? Kristen, are you there? We may have lost Kristen. Well, in any case, the situation on the border continues to be disastrous. She writes in her piece today over at Breitbart.com that children who are traveling on the death train are jumping onto a moving freight car. Minors who can't pull themselves onto the traveling cars have been falling onto the tracks, losing a leg, losing an arm, just horrendous stuff. Zach Taylor is chairman of the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers, and he told Breitbart Texas, quote, "The U.S. is partly responsible for foreign nationals taking extreme measures that risk the lives of their children. Our government is encouraging foreign nationals to come back into the country illegally and stay." Kristen is back on the line. Kristen, what exactly is the U.S. Border Patrol doing once they arrest these folks?
Right. Well, instead of turning them away, they're giving these detained illegal immigrants a slew of benefits, including shelter, food, vocational training, education, recreation, and even legal counsel, if you can believe it. All, of course, paid for by the U.S. taxpayers. So what happens next? The migrants get all of these things. They're released. First, actually, they're put in the custody of HHS. So they're transferred from Customs and Border Patrol to HHS, and then HHS typically releases them, and they say, come back to court and then they give them a certain date, but they release them in the meantime. So what does the migrant do then? They call home and they tell their relatives, oh, I have amnesty, I was set free. Of course, it's not actually amnesty, but it's what they perceive to be amnesty. And then that, of course, encourages more illegal migrants to make the trip into the U.S.
Well, one of the things we constantly hear from folks at Border Patrol is that they're turning away a lot of folks at the border. How practically do you turn somebody away at the border? What does that mean? I mean, presumably they could walk around people. They're not shooting anybody at the border. So how exactly are they turning folks away at the border?
Well, right now they're not turning folks away. They're not allowed to turn away anyone who's underage or a minor. And this tidal wave of immigrants, they are all minors, or almost all of them are minors. So it's most people are not getting turned away at the border. And unfortunately, a lot of folks in Central America have taken that to mean that the migrants are receiving amnesty.
Well, what do you think the president of the United States is going to do? Because we hear rumors that he's sending his emissaries to South America to talk to the leaders of countries, telling them, no, we're not going to give amnesty. But obviously these rumors are coming from somewhere, and I know there are a number of legislators who have implied, both legislators and sheriffs who have implied, that the Obama administration is tacitly encouraging all of this. From what you've seen at the border, do you believe that the Obama administration is tacitly encouraging this influx of migrants? And if so, what exactly should be happening?
Yes, they're absolutely encouraging more illegal immigrants to come, because having Jay Johnson and Biden go down to Central America and tell them that they're not going to receive amnesty, that's not really going to do much. It's more of a horse and pony show. What's really happening on the ground is that these illegal immigrants are largely getting to stay here. That's not to say they're becoming citizens, but they're being given taxpayer-subsidized benefits, and a lot of pro bono lawyers are saying that most of these young migrants will, in fact, actually get to stay here in the long term. So there's really a juxtaposition between what the Obama administration is saying and what's actually happening. And what is actually happening is what's influencing the word of mouth and the media reports that's surfacing in Central America right now.
God, it is scary and it is shocking stuff. And Kristen Tate over at Breitbart, Texas, has been all over it. Kristen, thanks so much for reporting on this, and we'll continue to check in with you as the crisis progresses.
Great. Thank you for having me on, Ben.
Well, as we continue here on the Ben Shapiro Show, we'll be talking a little bit about what exactly we can do to stop President Obama. Because I've been contending, I mean, if you're a regular listener to this show, you know that I've been contending for months that all of this is a setup. That the President of the United States is encouraging people to cross that border illegally because he wants a crisis. And he wants a crisis so that he can claim that we have to do something about immigration now. And then when nothing gets done about immigration, he's going to illegally declare amnesty for 11 million people. Beginning in November. Get ready for it. It's going to happen. We'll be talking about that. Plus, we'll get to the question of how employers have begun handling the upcoming $15 minimum wage implementation here in the city of Seattle. Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770, KTTH, KTTH.com.